The Vancouver Canucks make big news by signing JT Miller to a big contract that will keep him in Vancouver pretty much for the rest of his career or close to it. Justin Pooni of Locked On Canucks joins us to discuss the contract, what it means for the Canucks, and all things Vancouver Canucks next on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could be with us today, and thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen. We are free and available on all platforms. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show Justin Pooni, the host of Locked On Canucks. Feel like we just did this, but, good news happened, so you certainly want to talk about it. JT Miller, signing a 7-year deal worth $8 million a year to stay in Vancouver. And Justin, what does this mean for the Canucks, both this year and in the long term?
Well, I think it was the biggest question in Vancouver. I know we talked about it last week when I was on, but the outlook of the Canucks, that this was this dark cloud or this uncertain cloud hanging over the organization. And what was going to be the resolution? Was there going to be a trade that I think everybody in Canucks Nation probably thought was going to happen, or was there going to be an extension? And from all indications, the week previous, that they were far away on an extension, and that we fully expected that JT would come in and he'd play out his last year, and all of a sudden the ball started getting rolling. He had a brand new baby. Him and his wife brought into the world this year, and then also he signs a brand new extension. I think what happened was, just from my inclination, I don't know anything, but just he realized that this was going to be the best place for him to, be successful, and also where he was probably going to get a deal that he felt he deserved. Now, there's a lot of people out there on Canucks Twitter and Canucks fan base that hate this deal because it's a 7-year deal. He's going to be 37 at the end of it, making $8 million. And the PTSD of Canucks fans knowing that paying players at that age, at that price, never pans out. But when you look at it in the next 3 to 4 years, right, this is a win because JT Miller has been the Canucks' best player. JT Miller has been one of the best, players in the NHL over the last few years. You saw that last year, 99 points. It's not very. You look at what Jonathan Huberdeau just got, over 100 points. He's got $10.5 million from Calgary. Naz Kadri got, I believe it was 7. JT Miller got 8. And I think when you look at it and the product and where his salary, stands out amongst the rest of the NHL players, it is very club friendly. And the other thing that people are forgetting is the cap is going to get, is going to grow. We're coming out of this pandemic. Revenue is growing again in the league, and the cap is going to go up. You saw it with Tampa Bay when they signed guys like Cirelli to those longer-term deals with the expectation that the cap is going to keep on going up and up and up. So I think, yes, from a point of view of a Canucks fan, you're thinking, well, you just signed $8 million, but there's no cap space. The cap is going to go increase. There's going to be more cap space. They're going to be able to keep Bo Horvat. And as that continues to happen, you're keeping your best player on your team. And I think in that locker room, keeping your best player in Vancouver is a signal that to guys like Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, Elias Pettersson, that, hey, we're not punting on another season where we want to rebuild. Because this team does not want to rebuild, right? This team has its best players in its core and wanting to contend. They're going for it. Whether you like it or not, they're going for it.
Well, I would assume most fans would like the fact that they're going for it and not going to take a step back and try a rebuild. As far as, you mentioned sending a message to the other better players on the team as far as that's concerned. Who's up next as far as contract negotiations are concerned, and how do you think this will affect those negotiations?
Well, the next point of order is the Bo Horvat contract. Of course, he, alongside JT Miller, before JT Miller signs, were set to become unrestricted free agents come next season. Um, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Bo Horvat's contract is going to get done. I think it gets done right before training camp, maybe even sooner. Um, all reports have been that there's been positive talk, positive dialogue, and a deal will get done. He's the captain of the team. He's the longest tenured Canuck. He's been here for a while, and he's going to be here for a while. He's coming off his best season where he just scored 31 goals and got hurt at the end of the year. It was kind of, a bit of a crippling blow to this team. I think Bo Horvat will sign something along the likes of Ryan Nugent Hopkins, probably get a longer term deal, one less on the AAV, and you're seeing what's happening with these guys in Vancouver now, with Rutherford and Alvin. They're wanting to be here, right? Andrei Kuzmenko chose to be here. Ilya Mikheyev chose to be here. JT Miller chose to resign, taking less money. Even if he could have got 8.5, maybe 8.75 on the open market over that term, he still left money on the table to stay in Vancouver. And I think what you're seeing now with this organization is a shift. You're seeing a change from the top on down, where they're seeing that this organization is building something special. And I'm not saying a Stanley Cup is coming anytime soon, but you're seeing a new culture being born here. And I think that is something that is very refreshing. We've seen over the last 10 years under Jim Betting where it was very tumultuous, and you're seeing now this franchise take the shape of its new leadership under Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin. I think it's refreshing. It's exciting. The Canucks' new slogan is unfinished business. And this season, there is unfinished business. And I think the playoffs are the business that they want to finish.
No question about that. They came close last year, in spite of all the obstacles that they faced. As far as this season is concerned, what does it mean for the team to take away that uncertainty that existed before?
We all know Vancouver is a fishbowl of a media market. The media every day, had JT Miller not come in with a contract extension, every day would be asking a question about his contract status. They get on a losing streak. Well, does he want to request a trade? Does he want out? That whole cloud of just constant barrage from the media is not going to be there anymore. Or even just within the locker room itself, that uncertainty of, hey, is he only here for a year? Is he half in, half out? Now that JT Miller is 100% 10 toes down, committed to the Canucks and this franchise. It's going to be the case with Bo Horvat. And then after that, have Quinn Hughes locked in, you have Thatcher Demko locked in, Brock Besser just signed a new deal. So there's been work that has to be done. Now, Elias Pettersson has some pressure on him because he's going to be eligible for an extension after this year. And what does he want? We know how supremely skilled he is. We know all the tools are there. Can he put it together and finally have a season where, he takes that step from being a very good young player to being a bona fide all-star? And the same goes with Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko. I think this season, alongside with the uncertainty of JT Miller now being gone, it now shifts the focus to those three young players and how they kind of take over the franchise. Because JT Miller's here for another 7 years, but we know this franchise is going to go as far as Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and Thatcher Demko take them. So that's what I'm looking forward to now. Now that this whole JT Miller saga is over, how do these three young guys ascend into the elite ranks of the NHL, which I think we all know they're all capable of doing so.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see when and if they get that done. Justin, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter at _process sports. That's _process sports. Our show's Twitter at Locked On Canucks. You can also find our show on YouTube. Just search in Locked On Canucks in the search bar, and we'll probably be the first thing that shows up. And we're also free and available wherever you get your podcast services. So yes, please tune in. This week will be a lot of dedicated stuff towards JT Miller. It's further exciting that the season's just around the corner.
Yeah, can't wait. It's looking really good. Justin, thanks again for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you.
If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. Have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassles of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein. And like all Built Bars, cookie dough chunk puffs covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. And what's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com.